Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending today. We look forward to the engagement today, and welcome to our Mentorship Minute webinar sponsored by the Military and Security Society of Informs, the Institute for Operations Research and Management Science. So as I mentioned, the session is being recorded and it'll be posted on our YouTube page. Before we get started, Dr. Lunday, if you would click the next slide.
Gladly.
So I'd like to encourage everyone to connect with us on these handles on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, please let us know. If you have suggestions for future webinars, let us know that too. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to connect with you and continue to give back to the larger military and national security ops research and management sciences communities. As I mentioned, this session is being recorded and we'll post this on our YouTube page so that you can go back and check it out if you missed something or if you'd like to share it with others who weren't able to join us today. And we plan on posting the slides there as well on our Informs Connect page if you're an Informs member. So with that, next slide. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Brian Lunday. Dr. Lunday is the Vice President and President-elect for the Military and Security Society and an Associate Professor of Operations Research with the Department of Operational Sciences at the Air Force Institute of Technology. Dr. Lunday organized the Military and Security Cluster for the upcoming Informs annual meeting that's taking place the 7th through the 13th of November. And he's going to say a few words about our society and then walk us through the outstanding lineup we have in store for you. We definitely hope that you'll join us for that upcoming annual meeting. And if you aren't, many of the presentations are going to be recorded, and I'm sure that some of them will find their way into future mass webinars as well. But with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. The person who introduced us is Mr. Sean Doheny, who's done a lot for MAS over the past about year and a half and is our Vice President-elect. He'll take a leadership role. He's been doing a leadership role, but he'll take a formal leadership role in the upcoming calendar year. Thank you to everyone who's dialed in. I see we have 16 participants. As we have more, I won't stop and welcome them individually. I do want to pause for a second and ask, Sean, is everyone unmuted? And if so, can you allow them to be unmuted at their own discretion in the settings?
Yes, I can. So I've
Okay.
allowed, as they come in, I'm clicking the allow to talk.
Thank you. The reason I want to do that for this format is we have a small group of people, about 16. This is a preview to the Informs virtual annual meeting, a first for Informs. And I want to make sure that this makes the best use of your time. I can't see each person as they might text something. I have an eye on the text box, but I might not catch that. So if I say something and you have a question, this isn't a discussion or webinar where you need to save all questions until the end. I have information to share, but this is also an environment where we can discuss and we can collaborate. That's an important aspect of what the Military and Security Society and Informs at large is. Now, for those of you who've not seen me before or not heard from me, that's probably because I have a face for radio and a voice for writing. But our MAS president was nice enough to ask me to share some information with you today. So if you're not familiar or you're not currently a member of the Military and Security Society, you see before you what our goals are as a society. We're looking at a very application-focused perspective of operations research and analytics. And the M is first in the acronym, but the M is not the end-all be-all scope. We look at security in terms of cybersecurity, national security, policing. So it is a fairly large tent, if you will, and we welcome a lot of fellow researchers and their contributions. You're going to see that in a little bit of what's coming forth in the Informs annual meeting and the sessions within our cluster. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing many of you in the actual sessions in a few weeks. And we look forward to seeing many of you in future events that MAS is going to hold. And I'll talk to that in a minute or two. So MAS is not unlike a lot of professional societies. There are a number of benefits to joining and participating, and a lot of our current members currently encounter this. Obviously, we look to, well, I join and I'm a member because I get inspired. I get inspired by my colleagues, I get inspired by their work, and I get inspired because it gives me ideas and methods where I can improve my own work. And that's really what this is about. And you can see the bullets on the slide. I won't read them. I will highlight the last one. I'm going to come back to it in a little bit. Earn recognition. I'll talk to it in a little bit about the MAS awards, and I'll have something that I ask of you, but just keep that thought in the background for a moment. So the annual meeting. So if you're dialed in today, the odds are you've already registered for the annual meeting. You may be presenting. And first, I just want to say thank you. These are strange times. Hopefully the strangest any of us will ever need to encounter in our professional adult lives. And I'm grateful, I think most of us are grateful for Informs, keeping a coalescing of us together through what is personally my favorite meeting of the year, the Informs annual meeting. But even in the virtual environment, it's not easy. The professional staff at Informs have done a great job, but it wouldn't happen without each Informs member making contributions. So if you've submitted and are going to present some of your research, thank you. If you're organizing one of the sessions and you're attending today, thank you as well. If you're not doing either of those, but you're going to dial into the meeting to learn from others and network and be inspired, thank you for taking a personal interest in not just your professional growth, but the professional growth of others and collectively our organization. So in the upcoming weeks, this is a new thing for most of us. Some of you may have attended the Informs Business Analytics meeting in the spring. They had a lot of live presentations, and every so often struggled with and then overcame eventually some web-based interface challenges. As we prepare for that, the Inform staff has done some systematic effort, has made some systematic effort to reduce the friction points that would normally occur from a virtual conference. We'll still have one or two, so I want to thank you ahead of time for your patience. I want to thank you for your flexibility, and I want to thank you again for staying engaged and committing to your and others' professional growth. I think this virtual meeting is going to be a lot like any big event, whether it be your college graduation, for those of you who have a significant other, your marriage. If you enter that event anticipating negative things, that's what you will find. If you anticipate it with positive expectations, looking for the things that we normally value out of an in-person meeting, that is exactly what we will find as well. And so our own framework helps, and you attending this today tells me that you're one of the folks looking forward to it with a positive framework. So I want to share a little bit of what we as a society have offering each other and offering other members of Informs to learn about and look at. So I want to do that by sharing a little bit of an overview. Now, what you see on the screen is the first of two slides depicting the list of sessions in the Military and Security Societies cluster. Now, I have to caveat that statement. What you see obviously in the leftmost column is the day of the week. You see the session title, the number of talks or presentations in that session. The sponsored column indicates that MAS has sponsored a given session, meaning one of our members has coordinated that with the cluster, has chaired it, put together a group of like researchers into that session, and that's what makes it sponsored. Sponsored is not better. Sponsored is just one category. The X list or cross list are other sessions in emerging clusters, practice clusters, where those session chairs may not belong to MAS, but they recognize that their work, their session, has a strong overlap with the scope of our professional society. So that's where you see the cross list. Not every session belongs to one of those. There are some special ones that are technically in neither, and I'll identify that. What you see on Sunday is some of the game theoretic work and some of the cybersecurity work in the emerging clusters talks. On Monday and Tuesday, what you're seeing is a variety of sessions that are not all thematically linked. You're seeing some items on election security, which obviously timely. Again, some game theoretic models, risk and behavior, and then some of our applications into Tuesday on personnel logistics, which have been some traditional points of focus within the society. What you see on the end of Tuesday is a joint session that's actually, I believe, chaired by Dr. Greg Parnell out of Arkansas in the Military and Security Society and the Decision Analysis Society. The item in dark blue that I want to highlight there is the Military and Security Society business meeting and social. Now, traditionally, we would stand in a hallway, stand in a room, spend some time together, and have some beverages and snacks. Please dial in, please bring your own. But there are some important things that we want to share and we want you to participate in with that business meeting. Now, a couple minutes ago, I talked about the scope and the value that members get out of being a part of MAS. And the last bullet on that slide had to do with earn recognition. At the business meeting is when we will present 3 annual awards that MAS supports. 2 that are MAS sponsored and 1 that is Informs level sponsored. The Koopman Prize, and I'm going to mention these because if you don't know them, you should know them and you should consider them either to self-nominate or nominate others for in the future. The Koopman Prize, which has to do with the best published work related to military and security in the previous year, published in a peer-reviewed journal. The Bonder Scholarship, which is an Informs level prize supported by Military and Security Society, which has to do with developing ongoing research, typically by a doctoral student. Does not have to be a doctoral student, but typically by a doctoral student to garner the level of depth and impact being made. And then the J. Steinhardt Prize will also present. That's in honor of a lifetime of service and contributions to the society and its goals. So during that business meeting, that's one of the highlights that I'd ask you to dial in on because it's very important. It's important both to recognize those folks and to identify folks that you might nominate in the future because you mentor someone or you're doing something worth nominating. And we want to recognize excellence. There aren't enough awards to recognize all of the excellence, but we try and get a few each year. So please do dial into that business meeting. So that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. If you hadn't caught it online, the annual meeting is Sunday through Friday this year. As you can see on the times, they're all typically in the afternoons, Eastern Standard Time. We should be off daylight savings time at that point. So moving to the next slide. What you see on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is a little different. We appreciate that most of you have spent enough time on Zoom, Adobe Connect, Cisco, etc., MS Teams in the past 6 months that it's easy to develop fatigue. We don't want you to. We would love to bring you in, whether you're presenting or just listening, to some special sessions on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week. And what you see there is a lot of part 1, part 2. So we have some conjoined sessions on Wednesday, Countering the Insider Threat 1 and 2. On Thursday, you see a thematic grouping on game theory for cyber deception and security. And on Friday, you see risk and readiness analysis 1 and 2. So we wanted to showcase some of these related sessions later in the week, and they're complemented by a third session on Wednesday and Thursday that also have nice value and application. So I wanted to share that with you and highlight that to you because just when some people get excited as the week goes on and some people get tired, we have it's sort of like a game show, and then there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And what's coming on Wednesday and Thursday, Friday are magnificent. Now, hidden in there, you see the little NA talk. On Thursday, there's a concurrent session, an Informs tutorial on a career's worth of opportunities in the United States Army. Now, this tends towards obviously the M in our MAS acronym for our society. This is actually going to be chaired by Dr. Andy Hall, who I believe is on at this time. Dr. Hall, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So with no forewarning, I'd like to give you a second to share what that's going to entail.
Okay, so the tutorials are 90-minute sessions traditionally, and you have to write a paper which goes into the book proceedings for the conference in the tutorials book. And so they asked me to write a paper about military operations research, and so I started that last December, fully anticipating that I'd be at the conference and get a chance to talk to and see a bunch of the MAS folks in the room as I gave the talk. And so I think it's a nice talk. I've already recorded it. I talk a little bit about research in the area, and then I give 3 applications, 3 different projects that I worked on over the course of my almost 30-year military career. So I hope that you'll be able to sit in on that. It's during the kind of that late lunch hour. It should be fun. And there will be, I'll be there on chat to answer any questions that come up while my video is rolling. And then at the end, there'll be some questions.
Thank you very much. I think the thing I didn't do is introduce him properly. Dr. Andy Hall is the past president of MAS right now, a recently retired colonel in the United States Army, and now a faculty member and civilian. I don't know if everybody can see where you're sitting, but you've transitioned nicely. Dr. Hall brought up a couple items about a recorded session, and there are a couple discussion points I'd like to bring up to you. And what you see on the slide is some notes on the sessions. Typically in the past, we had a Military and Security Society awards session, usually on Monday afternoon, right before our business meeting, where we ask each of those recipients to share their work with the broader community. Now, as Dr. Hall mentioned, he's recorded his presentation, and I would say probably 80 to 90% of the session presentations are pre-recorded, where you can listen and live chat with the presenters as the presentation goes on, and as it brings to a close, it allows for discussion, a live discussion. We didn't want to ask the award recipients, who we're trying to honor, to also upload, prepare, and video record a presentation. Instead, what we're going to do is in December, the Koopman Prize recipient is going to present their work. And in January, the Bonder Scholarship recipient is going to present their work. And we'll also get the Steinhardt recipient to present in preferably January timeframe. So we want to get them live to handle your questions live and just maintain a little bit more informal atmosphere that reduces a burden that we would ask of someone whom we're actually bestowing an award to. So that's what happened to the MAS awards session if you were looking for it. If you are not aware yet, the platform you're on is the platform of the conference. Zoom is the provider. For those of you who've already uploaded presentations, you probably already know that, but we'll be working with Zoom. So if you do not already have the Zoom app installed as opposed to working through a browser window, it's probably worth considering it, subject to the permissions on your computer. So I see a couple things in the chat. All nice, thank you. If you aren't watching the chat, please do keep an eye on that. I'm a little slow on the uptake. Session formats. So within MAS, you're going to see something a little bit different than some of the other clusters. Not all of our sessions are going to be recorded. The majority are, where each presenter will have a recorded session that's pre-uploaded, and when the session begins, the video begins, and there's live chat. But we also have some live sessions and some hybrid sessions. Just by the nature of the presenter's interest, and a strong preference. Some of our sessions, and it's not indicated anywhere on the previous slides, you'll dial in and you'll have somebody live presenting. Now that comes with some bandwidth risk, but the material is interesting enough and good enough that we absolutely think it's worth any risk. And given everyone else's recording, we figure we'll be the people that fit through the needle and make it work. And then we'll have a few sessions that are hybrid, where you dial in and you'll see a couple recorded presentations with live chat, followed of course by the live presenters. I've alluded enough times to the last bullet on the slide that the presenters may not won't be speaking over their presentation, but they have the ability to do Q&A in the chat discussion as the presentation is going, and then as it comes to a close, the session chair can bring to a discussion area how that's going to come to fruition if there are some questions that have held until things are over. Now, I put up here, and I'm not going to read this. I don't expect you to read it in detail or memorize it. To share with you, this is the idea of what Informs, working the best to overcome any anticipated challenge, has given as instructions to session chairs. If you're a presenter, but you're not chairing a session, it's worth seeing this. It's worth seeing it because as people dial in, the virtual meeting begins. You can see there's in the third paragraph there's a press play so that everybody's getting to watch that presentation at the same time. And then working through, you get down to this live text chat. Now, if you read through all this 5 times, there's going to be at least 3 questions in anyone's mind that gets to, how does this work in practice? Where are the hiccups going to be? Where is it going to be smooth? Where is it going to be easy? Where is it going to be, where is the bump or two in the road that we need to level out? And the answer is, we're going to find out Sunday. And that's okay. We've got a few sessions, some of the cross-listed sessions on Sunday. If you're one of the session chairs dialing in today, you were probably going to attend a session on Sunday anyway. It's probably worth dialing in a couple minutes early to see other session chairs and how they work through it and what they do that works really, really well. So we can emulate and make the best experience for our folks. So here's what MAS asks of you. You're already in today, so I know that you're going to make the most of the annual meeting, and we really appreciate it. That business meeting is something I want to highlight because people have a natural tendency to attend all the technical talks, some of the keynotes. I was looking at the keynote list yesterday. I won't highlight anyone specific, but there are some great talks coming among the keynote and the plenaries. We recently have somewhat embraced analytics. One of them talks about whether or not we as a society should embrace and claim AI as part of what we do within operations research. You're naturally going to attend a lot of the technical talks. That business meeting, I mentioned honoring the award recipients. The other is we want more nominees. We had wonderful nominees this year and they're wonderful recipients. We are looking for more potential people to recognize in the upcoming years. And that those people might be you, where you self-nominate great work, or it might be somebody you mentor or work with. So if you are able to attend that meeting, you'll have an idea of what have other people done that has been award worthy within MAS. And the third thing on that business meeting is we're interested in members who'd like to become more active and contribute. There is no monopoly on good ideas for contributions, and we welcome yours. And that gets to the last part. We want feedback. This is but one webinar, and you have an idea. In December and January, we'll have live webinars where we have award recipients sharing their research. As we move into the year 2021 and all things turning out positive, we're able to move past and deal with the pandemic with favorable outcomes, we can return to more in-person events. But in the possibility that we need to have a balance of event types, we're interested in your feedback to keep things interesting and useful to you and our other members. So that doesn't have to be at the business meeting. That can be email, phone call, one-on-one chat here today and discussion. So at this point in the webinar, I'd like to open the floor and just see what questions you have, what discussion points you have. It doesn't have to be for me. Some of you have things that you'd like to share with a greater group, and that's the point today.
Excellent. So I believe that I've unmuted, allowed everyone to talk. So sorry, I don't mind. I think I might have cut somebody off. If you have any questions or discussion points, please chime in.
I'm actually going to call on one person. Nate, you mentioned a couple things in the chat box. Could you talk to those voiceover instead of the chat, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm on my phone here. Let me pull up the chat. Okay. Yeah, so the advances in AI-enabled security analytics, that happens to be my session. It's joint with the College of AI, which is, I guess they renamed sections to colleges or something, but for informed. But yeah, so that's a joint session. We've got 5 talks spanning fraud detection, sort of AI for the Internet of Battlefield Things, and looking at AI system resiliency and security. Talk on AI for social cybersecurity, like think of like bot hunting and in bot detection, that sort of work. Maneuvers in social cyberspace. We have a talk on different types of adversarial machine learning attacks, but particularly model inversion attacks. I believe that is the current spread of talk, so it should be a good session. I think that's it, Brian. I think I answered it.
And I'd like to dovetail on something you said about learning from the sessions before. So I'm chairing the session. If you go to the next slide, all the way on Friday. But please, I'm going to encourage you to definitely dial in. Obviously, in these challenging times, decision makers are looking for answers yesterday in what they should be doing today. And so we've focused those talks on the risk and readiness related analyses. To the last presenter of the mass session is Deborah Gordon, who's just an extremely accomplished consultant who's worked at the highest levels in DoD, Department of Defense, for several of our former secretaries of defense. And I'm just going to encourage you, without giving too much away, it's really a great mic drop moment and challenge to the analytic community to help support all of the decisions that are taking place there. So please dial in. Following up on what Dr. Lunday was talking about. So we've several of our presenters wanted to do a recording session all together so that they could hear each other's presentations and riff off of each other. And so I'm anticipating, one, the presentations really are interactive in and of themselves because of that, but then they're all committed to dialing in and monitoring the chat and continuing the conversation through the rest of the presentation time too. So I think it should be really timely, interesting, and fun for the audience as well.
Thank you very much, Sean. Since we're back to these slides, I wanted to bring these up. And I know Dr. Andy Hall had talked about the tutorial. I'm just doing a brief highlight. There was one I alluded to. I believe Dr. Scala, Natalie, maybe on. I've seen you pop up in several different articles in the past 2 weeks. I think you're probably busy doing interviews. Is this session related to those things? I've seen them in the media.
Yeah, so the Informs outreach component, Jeff Cohen, Ashley Smith, Ashley Kilgore, set up a few interviews over the last couple of weeks to discuss this. So specifically, we'll be talking about 3 main points in this session. The first one is how do we prepare poll workers and mitigate them as being a potential insider threat? not because they necessarily have nefarious intentions, but they may make mistakes, honest mistakes, and that also introduces risk into the process. So we'll be talking about poll workers and insider threat. We'll be talking about mail-based voting and some early research we have on attacks and where are the most risky nodes in a mail-based voting process. And then the last talk in our session is, how does this translate into policy? And candidates and decision makers, what do they do about this? And we'll talk about that more on a higher level at the end of the session.
Excellent. Thank you. Before, I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't know if there are any other session chairs who are here today who can talk a little bit to their session since we have a little bit of time. Let me make an open call. Okay. So with that, let me make the most of your time today. As Sean had mentioned, we look forward to you connecting with us. We've got the different social media platforms. You can see the email addresses below of our elected leadership. And Sean is our Vice President-elect at this point. So please reach out to us if you have questions you didn't get to ask today. Ask if you have ideas. We welcome them. And we look forward to seeing you virtually, if not otherwise, at the annual meeting.
Excellent. And thank you so much, Dr. Lunday. And we don't need to end the call now. Really, if you do have questions, everyone is unmuted. Welcome your participation, and we're here to answer those questions or discuss some of the topics there. And I'll stop the recording here shortly so that if there are questions that folks would like to engage off the recording, we're happy to entertain those as well. But definitely want to encourage you. We're always looking for ways to give back to the military and national security communities, and so we've now been doing these webinars on about a quarterly, about a monthly basis. Has it been? No, sorry, my apologies. Quarterly basis, but we're starting to see more and more content and suggestions where we're considering increasing these to even monthly. So if you have suggestions on ways that you'd like to present some of the work that you've been doing, we'd love to hear it. You're interested in, I saw Nathan's comment about more artificial intelligence and machine learning topics. And I know Dr. Nate Bastian talked through his session there, and I know that he also holds other AI related talks as well. And so we'd love to connect with you, see where your interests are, and how we can partner with you, because I know one of the challenges with the military and national security domain is there are limitations to collaboration. There are also tremendous opportunities for collaboration, and that's where we really would like to reinforce those successes. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us on the emails, on the handles that you saw on the slides, and the email addresses you saw on that last slide there as well. So before I turn off the recording, are there any other questions? I do see a raised hand. My apologies for missing that. I believe, Michael, let me know if you can come off mute.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to put a quick plug in for another session that was not on your slide. Session MA05 on Monday morning has two military themed topics, or two military themed talks among the 5 on its list. One of them is from me on rocket defense, in particular Israel's Iron Dome system. And then there's also one on fire support under various environmental conditions. So that's MA05 if anyone's looking for more military themed topics.
That's outstanding. I apologize. Did we miss listing it? Or
it's not one of the official mass sections. It's I was late getting organized, so I think it's just lumped in with one of the miscellaneous groups.
Okay, I will make sure that we do include it, and we'll post that through a Informs Connect, though, because we value that. And And is this Iron Dome currently in operation in the Middle East, or some of the exports of it?
It's looking at Israel's experience with it 2005 to 2014. So particularly the Operation Pillar Defense, Operation Protective Edge. So their actual experience with it.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. And any others? Okay, we'll go ahead and terminate recording. I'm going to stay on in case you have a question, but you didn't want to put it on a recorded video. So, Sean, could you please let us know when recording's done?